knowing that God, you're not here to live up to the standards of other people. Those are their standards. You see what I'm making? You're here to live up not to their rules and regulation and to their laws. Those are their laws, their rules, and their regulations.
Right.
We're not put here to live up to anything that is theirs. We put here to live up to what is ours. But until we know that self, until we get in tune with that self, we cannot help but to live up to theirs. To study what they say we should study. To learn what they say we should learn. To discover what they say we should discover. Why? Because we don't know why we're here. Because we don't know who we are. Now, how do we find out that who? That we are. Is it in the books? Books is like the smoke of the incense. It's not the incense. Do you understand what I'm making? It's just where the incense was at. The incense just touched that area. You follow what I'm saying? That's what a book is like. The knowledge of ourselves is not in the book. But the self can compile an image of itself. The self begins to collage. Y'all don't hear what I'm saying? It begins to make a collage to create itself in consciousness. I can take from this, and oh, let me take from that, and oh, I feel that, and take from this. Oh, that's me. It's feeling itself in fourth dimensional reality. Now it's creating itself in the image and likeness of its God self. It's beginning to create itself by making a collage from everything it comes in contact with. It's drawing out of those things and building up its own self based upon how it knows itself. Y'all don't hear me? And once it takes all this stuff, now its image of what was already it can now only be seen on some level in the material world, in the material universe. But if we don't know the self, if we're not in touch with that aspect of our own being, then how powerful we are don't make sense. Because we believe that the universe belongs to someone else and we're here visiting. That's why they make the laws up, because it belongs to them. This they shit. We're just walking around on the planet. But when you know yourself, you know that it's ours to create. The planet is ours. All the material in the universe is ours. Because it's all the food source. And it's all the elements that we need to manifest ourselves in the material reality. All the paint and the paintbrushes is ours. He don't own this. When he gave us the dictionary, he gave us his matrix. So we thought that he had a monopoly on defining things. But he told you that it was true. It's just his diction. It's not a definitionary, it's a dictionary. Diction is just your way, the way you speak. You understand what I'm making? It's not a definitionary. But we use it as though it's a definitionary. And that's just, he's telling you that's just his understanding and his perception of reality. So we act like, we walk around on the earth and act like that is his earth. And we don't, when I'm saying it, I'm not saying we walking around like that consciously. Even some of us say that we're conscious. And we look around and look at the universe and believe that somehow it belongs to somebody else. Literally, we have not conceptualized that this whole planet is the material from which God is manifesting himself in the material universe. Who is that God that's doing that? Why is all this here? Is it here because it's the white boys to figure this shit out? Is that why all this land and bricks and elements and trees and rubber and gold and silver, that's why it's here? It's here for the European to figure it out and put it together? Absolutely not. But he was so cold in presenting that image to us and defining our reality, and now we're walking around in our own consciousness. It's not that we walk around on the earth. Like I said, the earth without consciousness is void. The consciousness is the God, is the deity. So it's not that we're walking around on the earth, it's that we're walking around in our consciousness with this. He don't just rule the earth, he rules our consciousness. When you look at something and identify with his framework of reality. Every time you look at it, you say, well, the white man didn't stand up. He ain't even there. But he's been identified as an overview. You understand what I'm making? He's identified as the sole framework. Let me give you an example.
Why it's so serious?
I was arguing with a socialist, and they kept talking about the system.
Why it's so serious?
They said it's the white man's system, the system. I said, where's the system? I don't see it. That blew his mind.
Wow.
I said, I don't see the system. I see confusion, chaos.
Precisely.
I see void.
Shine.
But you know what I see in the void? Gods that can shape it.
Mm.
So you want me to believe in this system that need to be destroyed, but your system is unsystematic because it can't even do what it say it can do. It can't even do what it say it's trying to do. It's hoping. What type of system needs to hope that a person can get in office to do something? Something systematic does not need hope. So the fact that you're hoping for change and all this, and you can't systematically in an organized way create it, there is no goddamn system. But the reason they want you to keep believing in the system is because if you can just accept the idea of that there is a system, you are already a conscious slave.
Precisely.
There is no system. It's just an infinity of possibilities that is co-respondent to what you create. You move and it moves. You see the point I'm making? It is moving simultaneously with you. We are the reality. There is no system outside of that. And to accept his idea of system is to become passive to the creative power that we actually possess. Because we have the power to create and determine. We look out and we say, this is a neighborhood. We say, we live in this neighborhood. That's something he made up. A neighborhood. How can you go and say that it's a neighborhood when a neighborhood has no particular definite form to it? You got this type of neighborhood, that type of neighborhood, this type of community, and that type of community. So what is a community in and of itself? It's an infinite thing. And if you take any of his words and you scrutinize them that way, you will find the same thing. That everything that he uses to define something or to understand something is infinite. Take care of everything. If you really, really sit down and just really mentally build on, you say, well, a community, what is that? Oh, there are millions of thousands of different types of community. Then what the hell is it? If it's infinite, how is it defined? Take any of his words. The definition was not meant to explain what is happening, but meant to control the minds over the people, to limit them inside of that framework. Outside of the limited framework is the infinity for us to create the reality that we want to manifest. We look outside of our window. The neighborhood outside of us can become Kemet. It can become Nubia. Right outside of our window. We ain't got to travel all the way over to Cairo, Egypt to see pyramids. The neighborhood right outside of us can be affected by our consciousness, by the way we define reality, the same way it was affected by the pharaohs in the past. We're no different from Akhenaten. We're no different from the pharaohs of the latter day. The only difference is they perceive reality different from we do. We live in a contextual framework that says there's a difference between then and now. That there's some great difference. That we're not still somehow who we used to be. That's why they teach us our history. Because that's not us anymore. We're not the same people that built the pyramid. That there's a difference between us then and us now. You know the difference? Us now are studying us then. Us then wasn't studying us now. While we sitting around studying us then was building. You see the difference? Because we believe we have to understand the past and replicate a past to capture inexhaustible creativity in the moment.
Paste.
You got to realize if we had no language, if we had no language, no books, none of that, how many of you think that we're intelligent enough to create the most magnificent, magnanimous universe, community, civilization known to man? How many of you all know that?
I know that.
If we had none of his language, customs, or rituals, now we're getting out the matrix with thinking like that. But he makes you think that who you are is what he taught you to be. But who he taught you to be, which is an imitation of him, is a limitation. Because he is limited, because he can't even do what we did. But he's going to teach us now. How if you can't replicate the greatest of our works? You ain't caught up with what we did in ancient times. But now you're going to educate me.
10,000 BC.
But when I did it in the ancient times, I did it without your education. That's some bullshit. That's nothing but to keep you beneath him. If we built the most powerful, flourishing, prosperous civilization known to man without your education, how the hell, if you can't reproduce what we did, you going to educate us to do it? Well, I'm going to teach you about Egypt. If you ain't showing me how to build no goddamn pyramid, you're not teaching me about Egypt. What are you teaching me? Well, this is your black history class. If history is not being taught in a way of which you totally understand what took place and what manifested, then what are you teaching? Just his story. A lie he made up to keep us limited. It is in us to produce divinity. It is in us to bring forth the most powerful thing known to man. It's inside of us to do this. This is not a product of education. This is not a product of our past. This is something that's supposed to come from us anyway. And we have been stagnating the process by trying to identify with his framework of reality. We've given him literally too much power. Now, the level of power we've given him is bigger than working for his job institutions and going to school and being within the Christian paradigm and matrix. It's bigger than that. We don't realize how huge it is. That's just like the super prison. That's Supermax. If you still walking around talking about Jesus today, you in Supermax. If you still working for the European institution, totally codependent as him being your economic overlord, you in Supermax prison.
That's what it is.
If we still going to his colleges, putting his collar around our neck, going to his professors, those who profess to know but really don't know, you in Supermax prison. But people who claim to be conscious are still in prison. They just got work release. Y'all know what I'm saying? But they think they off the hook though, not knowing how much work that has to be done. That's why I was telling the sister today, I was like, we got to mind our business because we can't do it if we don't mind it. You understand the point I'm making? Our business ain't going to be done if we're minding somebody else's. You see what I'm making? That's to mind is to produce gold and wealth for somebody else. We got to mind our own business because we don't know how far we behind in who we need to be. So it's bigger than not going to college, not having a job, and being in a church. It's deeper than that.
Right.
Got to get past that.
Right.
And conceive of deep, because it's work that we have to do, that people have to do, that's so-called conscious. They've really been let off the hook because they don't see that if you're still walking around in the same framework, you got a lighter sentence. But you still in there. Until we now have done the work to define reality and to make it conform to the definition of which we create, you're still in prison. When we can define and say, you're a God, we can go to another brother and sister and say, you're a Nubian, you're a deity, you're Kemetic, and then they respond in a way that is incongruent with the definition. Now we're